Hi everybody, it's Sean again, and what we're going to show you today is how to prep some grain jars, and I'll show you the grain I'm using. Now this is specifically for this particular grain. What we're using here is milo and millet. This is what I use. This is pretty similar to what you'd be using if you're using wild bird seed. It's pretty much the same main ingredients. I like using this stuff because this is a no-soak simmer method. This gives you a lot of inoculation points, and the mic really seems to like this stuff. So it's pretty simple. And the first step is I weighed this out. I'm doing 7 jars, so I've got about 5 pounds of grain here. And it's going to go in the pot with hot water, and I'm going to bring it up to a simmer and hold it there until it's done. And I'll show you that. There's no real set time to this. Some people tell you 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. But I'll show you how I do it, which is I check the grain as it's cooking, and when it gets to the right consistency, what I call al dente, when I can break one of these millets and one of the milos, and the millet is swollen up and is tender to the bite, then I know it's ready. Alright, so what we're going to do is dump it in here, hot water, bring it up to a simmer, and then we'll come back and I'll show you that process. So real simple. And what I'm doing is I want to make sure that I've got a good 3 or 4 inches above the millet in there, and maybe a little bit more. And the reason for that is so that it cooks evenly. And as this swells down, your water level will go down as this grain swells. And you don't want to be caught short. Now, you notice I didn't wash this stuff, didn't do anything to it. You might get a little floaties of chaff with working with millet or milo or that combo. That's okay. If you see some big stuff, just pick it out. If you're using wild bird seed, I'd say actually rinse that stuff out and skim off all the floating stuff. That stuff tends to be pretty dirty, but this is much cleaner. So this is pretty much all it is. And once this comes up to heat, I'll be back to show you some more. Okay folks, we're back. It's been a while. I let this thing come up to a simmer, and it's been sitting here, and I'm periodically been going in here and giving it a good stir. And you want to give it a good stir every once in a while just to make sure that you're cooking everything evenly. And that goes for any grains, not just this millet and milo. If you're doing rye or oats or any of that, you want to stir it occasionally. Make sure it's cooking evenly, or else you're going to get overcooked on top, on the bottom, and undercooked on top. And if you'll see the difference, this is the unhydrated up on top and the hydrated stuff on the bottom. And you notice it's swollen up quite a bit. It's about 30% larger now. And the way I check this, I take a couple of these milo, and if I could cut it like that with my thumbnail. Alright. Just want to be able to cut it cleanly. And this is about ready. I might give it a few more minutes, but this is the way you check it. And then you'll see that the millet is really swollen up in size. And the other thing you can do is just taste it. It should taste like slightly underdone pasta, is the way I describe it. Al dente, well, a little worse than al dente. I'm going to give this stuff about another 5 minutes, and then we're going to drain it, and I'll show you my drain setup, and then we're going to be good to go until it's time to actually jar this stuff up. Alright? See you in a bit. Okay, so we're back now, and this is my little frame here, and what I did was I made this out of 1x3 or 1x4 actually, and some number 8 metal cloth in here, which is just a type of stainless screening. You can get this at like Home Depot or Lowe's or someplace like that. Or you can use a big colander or anything else that you have around. It's just some kind of netting or something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my really hot hydrated greens and I'm going to dump them out. And I got this over the deep sink in my garage. Get that all out and get as much out as I possibly can. Hey, got most of it. Hey, I'm going to take my handy dandy slotted spoon, and what I'm going to do is for the next 10 minutes or so, I'm just going to stir this around. And some people just spread it out and let it go, but I like to stir it like this and start steaming off all the excess moisture. And it's going to drain out, it's going to steam off. Sometimes it helps to set up a fan on this. I don't have one available right this second. It's really hot here in Southern California the last few days, and the fans are in use in the house, so I will make do. It's just going to, and it's very humid here, so it's just going to take a while for the stuff to steam off and dry off. But once I got to the point where I'm not seeing steam anymore, what I'll do is I'll spread this all out. I'll spread it out nice and flat like this, and I'll put furrows in it, kind of like that. And what that does is it increases the surface area, so it'll dry a little faster. And I'll periodically come out here and stir it up and spread it out again, and just so I'm exposing more of it. But for the next few minutes, this is going to be my life. Just stirring it until I'm not seeing any more steam come up, and then I'll just let it sit. And then when it's ready, I'll load this up into a bowl so I can do my jars, and I'll show you that by what we mean by hand dry. And that's a term people kind of get a little confused about, but hand dry means kind of like, well, just that. And I'll be showing that to you here in just a little while. Okay, everyone, we're back. So now what I'm going to show you is how to load up the jar. Now, standard quart wide mouth jar. This will hold, when it's filled up 2/3 to 3/4, it's right around a pound. Perfect size for spawning a 5-pound brooding block. I spawn heavy. Some people use like half. Some people use less. Depends on your strain. It depends on your substrate also. You can get away with a less spawn if you're doing a very aggressive strain on a very rich substrate, like say Master's Mix or a 25% bran or beet pellet. Now here's a little tip. Some people disagree with this, but to help regulate the moisture content in the jar, what I'll do is I'll add a few wood pellets. Now I'm doing some hardwood stuff, so I'm going to add just a few. And when I say a few, whoops, an escapee, just a few, a tablespoon or so of these wood pellets down the bottom. These are hardwood because I'm doing a hardwood species. If I was doing a species that I was going to put, like say tarragon or oysters or conifer coral that is going to go on a fur pellet based substrate, I'll use fur pellets. If I'm doing an agaric, say I'm doing almond mushrooms, or I'm doing blazei, the blazei, or if I'm doing horse mushrooms or something like that, or portobellos, I'll actually add a tablespoon, a big heaping tablespoon of a manure-based substrate that I'm going to be using to fruit them on, and that gets them. That helps regulate the moisture, and it also gets them used to eating wood or the substrate they're going to be on. Handy tool for putting stuff in the jars is this. It's just a little canning funnel. These are sold by Ball. It's a little kit, and it also comes with this, which is a jar lifter. These come in really handy. I use mine for canning, but they come in handy for our stuff too. Trying to get jars out there still a little bit warm. People are a little nervous. These, you can just lift the jar. They're great. Now for filling, I'll use this, just some plastic and that funnel. Now here's that grain that I prepped earlier. Now you notice it kind of flows freely. It doesn't leave my hand wet, but it's still moist. It still sticks a little bit to my hand, but it's still moist. Don't over dry it either. Don't let it be too wet, and don't over dry it either. You want it nice and loose and free flowing like that, and that'll work out just fine. So got my jar here, and what I'll do is I'll just 1 cup, 2 cups, and that's about 2/3 full. And you'll notice if I even that out, that's about 2/3 full. If I want them a little bit fuller, I'll add another scant 1/2 cup, and that's closer to a 3/4 full for this jar. And that's about right. I usually do about 2.5 cups in mine. So make sure this is all clean. If you need to, wipe it off. Make sure there's nothing stuck on the lid rim. Now I'm using one of the standard lids that Lenny showed you how to make. Mine's with the 2/4 inch holes. I use the smaller injection ports. 1 piece of tape on the inside, 3 on the outside. I've used this one once before. I'll use it again before I'll actually take a razor blade and scrape off that tape, or use my thumbnail to take this one off and replace the tape. I'll replace these after about 2 or 3 uses, and I'll get about 4 uses out of the lid. When you start getting spots of corrosion rust on the inside of the lid, or really rough stuff on the outside rim, these need to be tossed out and don't use them again. So set it on there really nicely. Tighten it all the way down. Tighten it really nice and tight. And then a foil cap. I can't tell you how important a foil cap is. Just a little square. This is heavy duty aluminum foil. This helps keep moisture from gathering up on top of the lid here while it's being processed. Helps keep this fairly dry, and also keeps stuff from settling on it afterwards. I always keep these foil caps on, and it's really simple. You just slap it on there, and that's it. And this jar is ready to go into the PC. Now my 23-quart Presto will hold 7 of these jars, and what most of you have is there's a rack that goes in here into the bottom. This is for a smaller PC. Mine's not set up right now. A lot of you have problems, I know, with running out of water or wondering how much water that you need in there. Well, there's a simple way of making sure you have enough water and keeping these jars out of the water while they're being processed. You don't want them sitting in water. If they're up in here, you'll get over processed down here and dry it out up on top. Really important to keep grain jars out of the water. And what I do is I use this. This is an old cat food can. I washed it out, punched a hole in here so that steam can go in here. If you don't, these things will rock like crazy in there and shake your jars around while they're processing. You don't want that. So I put 3 of these in the bottom, and then the racks, and then fill up water just about the top here, and then put the rack up on top of those, and that keeps the jars up off the bottom of the PC and gives you plenty of water for processing. Now, jars like this, 90 minutes at 15 psi. A little tip, if you're using wild bird seed and there's still some sunflower seeds in there, give it an extra 20 minutes. At least a good extra 20 minutes, because that has a lot of fats in it, a lot of oils. Those, you want to spend a little extra time to break down those lipids a little bit, or else they can be a contamination problem. And it can be. But it shouldn't be, but it can be. Better safe than sorry. And then just extra process time. Well, and that's about it. That's as simple as it is to produce grain spawn jars. Much better than buying the stuff, much cheaper than buying this stuff, and more reliable. You know exactly what you're getting. You get to produce your own for a fraction of the cost. And remember, buy all your LC, all your cultures from the Mycelium Emporium. See you next time, folks.